Welcome to the Bougie Baldie Podcast with your host, Kellie Rhymes.
Hi, and welcome to the Bougie Baldie Podcast. Today we have a special guest. Her name is Lorna Jones, and she is coming from the UK to talk to us about alopecia, hair loss, and all of the things related to hair loss. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Lorna. Lorna Jones qualified as a trichologist from the prestigious International Association of Trichologists. She undertook her clinical training in various parts of the world, including Australia, South Africa, Washington, and the UK. She set up her clinic dealing with hair loss and scalp issues called Caring for Hair in London, where she is now based. She is a published author and speaks at conferences both in the UK and internationally on various aspects of hair care and hair loss. She runs a training course and trains new trichologists as well. She is also the national group leader of the UK CCCA support group run by the Scarring Alopecia Foundation based in the US. CCCA, otherwise known as Centrofungal Cicatricial Alopecia. Yes, I always get tongue-tied on that. But it is the type of central hair loss condition that is found almost exclusively in Black women. Recognizing some of the unique experiences that individuals with Afro-textured hair may face regarding cancer-related hair loss, she founded C and Hair. It is a service dedicated to providing support and guidance for individuals with Afro-textured hair faced with hair loss due to cancer treatment. Welcome, Lorna.
Thank you so much for that very kind introduction.
Yes, you're welcome. And I am happy that you decided to come on to the podcast to talk about what you do, because many people don't know what a trichologist is. Most people know about a dermatologist, but they may not quite know a trichologist. And you are a person that can also assist them. So let's go ahead and start by just talking about what a trichologist is. So can you explain what trichology is and your role as a trichologist in addressing hair loss, particularly in women?
Great. Yes. So a trichologist is a hair loss and scalp specialist. So we focus entirely on those two things. We're not medics. So we quite often work alongside, or we refer cases to dermatologists.
Mm-hmm.
When we need to. There'll be certain types of hair loss. There's many, many, many different types of hair loss, first of all. So we see consultations, we see men and women. Mostly women come through the door, but men, have experienced hair loss as well. And, quite often, quite how they always deal with it or navigate it will be different to women, but
Okay.
nonetheless they do suffer, in the same way. And
Mm-hmm.
the way women are better, well, when I say better equipped to deal with it, they have better options to deal with it. That's probably the word, not equipped. They have better options than men, i.e. they can camouflage hair loss, which is a very important management tool to manage hair loss, in terms of scarves, head ties, wigs, wraps, and men obviously don't have access to many of that, although they're having men wigs now, some quite interesting sort of men's pieces that they can wear. So
Okay.
that's what we do as a trichologist. We have consultations, we diagnose what we believe is, you can see that's happening on the scalp and to the hair, and we will treat it in the clinic in terms of holistic treatment. So we won't be able to prescribe medication, but there's quite often over-the-counter treatment that we can do.
All right. So tell me, what are some of the main causes of hair loss that you typically encounter?
Okay, so the two most commonest types of hair loss in Black women particularly will be traction alopecia, which is a which is reversible if it's caught early enough. So traction alopecia is where there's tension applied to the scalp when the hair is pulled tightly, whether it's tight wigs, tight weaves,
Hmm.
tight retwisting of locks. And if it's caught early enough, then that can be reversible
Okay.
if the tension is released and with topical treatments stimulate the hair follicles underneath to start reproducing the hair. And
Okay.
then at a very late stage, when over a prolonged period of time, when women, men, because they have tight locks as well,
Hmm.
it gets to a stage where it's accessible, that's the word, and it becomes scarring. So we have a non-scarring, which is a reversible position, turn
Okay.
into have a reversible at first, and it can turn into something quite permanent later on over a period of time. And there's
Okay.
not a huge deal you can do with that, apart from
Yeah.
hair transplants, which work very well, actually, with the pulling, especially at the front and the sides, the edges.
Okay. Okay. So I know with scarring alopecia, because I mean, of course, that's the kind of form of alopecia I have, the CCCA. I mean, I was never told it could be reversed. I mean, I'm glad you said that. So if you catch it early enough, there's potential to have some hair regrowth. Do you know maybe how soon you would need to catch it? Like, are there like a certain, like within a certain year, like the first year you should catch it, or are we able to gauge how soon we can catch it before we can stop it from being more permanent?
Yeah, and that's a tricky one because it depends on the symptoms. So with something like CCCA, which is the commonest type of scarring, which is permanent alopecia or
Hmm.
hair loss, it depends on symptoms. So sometimes women will complain of itching, they may complain of a tender, sore scalp, sensitive scalp.
Hmm.
They may see hair breakage in that area. So their hair is certainly left all over, but just where they're beginning to have that problem, their hair may be shorter and it's actually breaking off. And it's caused by inflammation. So those are some of the symptoms. And then some women with CCCA will have no symptoms at all. They'll just have no itching, no signs of it, anything happening, and they'll see a bald spot, and as the hair gets breaking off, and it starts to widen. It's called central because it's found in the center of the scalp.
Hmm.
Centrifugal because centrifugal means that it starts in the center and it moves outwards in a symmetrical pattern
Hmm.
usually. Cicatricial means scarring, and alopecia, we talked about that, is another word for hair loss. Now, it's not always, it's generally found in the center of the scalp, but it can be found and located elsewhere as well, not just the center. But that's
Yeah.
largely where it's mostly found.
Yeah, I know mine started at the center and then it kind of spread to the sides of my head. But yeah, it kind of just went outwardly, you know? And I know even to this day, if I let my hair grow out a little bit, like to a certain length, like if it just and that length isn't that long. So it's not even 1 inch, but it'll hurt. Like my scalp will hurt because my hair is growing out. So I guess it just becomes inflamed again. I don't know. So I just keep my hair cut. I just like, nope. Just as long as I keep it cut every day, I'm fine.
Wow. But it's a beautiful style, and that's what's great thing about it. There's so many different styles, and women are more confident now. Well, some people have always had low cut styles, and sometimes people completely take off all the hair. It depends, isn't it, how you feel. But going back to your original question, when do you know? At what point does it become scarring? So with inflammation, it's really important to catch it as early as possible, certainly if you have the symptoms, so that any medication that you get, it can start to work on the hair follicle. Now, the hair follicle is beneath the scalp.
Hmm.
It's an
Hmm.
inflammatory progressive illness. So
Okay.
if the medication can stop the inflammation before it destroys the hair follicle, then there's a good chance that it can continue to grow. And that's what it is. It's about controlling the inflammation, stopping it in its tracks.
Okay.
So those that have already been destroyed sadly won't produce any more hair. But those follicles that are still functioning and still can produce hair will continue to do so, which is why at first, years ago, I said, oh yes, it's irreversible, it's scarring, there's nothing you can do about it. But if you catch it early enough, what is early enough? As early as you can feel or see something happening. If you don't feel anything, if you can see something happening, get along to a trichologist who will be able to at least identify that. And in England, we have our treatment pathway is slightly different in that we can refer to the GP, who will then refer to the dermatologist through the National Health Service, NHS, and it's entirely free. Or we can refer directly to a derm, which is a private derm. And I do both because sometimes people don't want to wait because it's a free service. The timing may be too long for people to wait and they just sometimes just want to get it resolved. And quite often people don't know or don't realise that derms do nails, skin, and hair. Don't always know. They think a derm is just the skin. So they don't know where they could go straight away to get a derm's appointment. And we're nearer to the I work a lot with hairdressers and barbers. And so they'll know about trichologists to begin with, but there are more of us, more people are studying and doing it. So the words are getting out. So we just, all of us, whatever position we're in, whether we're a stylist, whether we're a hair coach, whether we're a braider, optician, as long as they can recognise hair loss, then refer on. It's really essential. So I do quite a bit of work with them where I can.
And I've also read that sometimes there will be stylists who will get additional training to become trichologists. So they're a stylist or a barber and a trichologist. So there are those types of people out there. You guys, you just may have to just ask the questions, or you could just go directly to a trichologist and work with them. Now, Lorna, what would be some common myths that you may have heard of while doing your work?
Okay. So going back to stylists transitioning or taking on additional skills. So I am a part of the International Association of Trichologists, the IAT, and I run the Hair Practitioners Certificate course, which is short HPCC, short for that. And we have a number of stylists that come on. I run it over 12 weeks. It's online. People, men and women, join and they get a course handbook, and then we meet over Zoom over 12 weeks, once every fortnight on a Sunday afternoon when stylists are not working and barbers aren't working, and they can qualify with this. And they learn about the functions and structures of the skin and the scalp. They learn about the common types of hair loss, how to identify them. So if stylists are interested and want to, because everybody's got to up their game. Because when something's happening to people's hair, anything to their body, they go straight to Google, don't they? They go to social media. And you've got somebody on social media telling you, this is what you have to do, this is what I did, and this way. Why not learn it for yourself? Because once you learn it, that person becomes an expert. And then when you're doing somebody's hair and you recognise it, and you can say, well, look, I think you probably need to, don't ignore it, because if you ignore it, it's going to get worse. So if you're thinking, if you call it out, people won't come back. Eventually, they won't come back anyway. If the hair is getting less and less of it, if the scalp is becoming more visible and there's less hair to manipulate, some of the styles that women may have been able to in the past, they're not able to do. It'll be the work will be camouflaging the hair loss as it gets wider. So I wouldn't ignore it, really don't. There's too many of us around at the moment to be able to help. So, and you'll be helping your client anyway, and they will come back, because what will happen is it increases the trust as well between the client and yourselves as professionals, because they will know that you know what you're talking about, because you become an expert in just basic hair loss, which is great, because we are seeing it more and more. Use castor oil. And so people will say they use different things. It's grown my hair. And it may well have grown their hair. I mean, if someone says their hair has grown, you're not going to say, well, actually, no, it hasn't. But then they'll tell you what they've used. And that product may well have worked for them. But then quite often when people have grown their hair, unless you're using something that has actively been researched to say that this is a, hair growth. I mean, if you see so many hair growth oils,
Right.
All over the place, what's in them. I mean, if there was one particular thing that worked for everyone, everywhere would, I mean, hair products is a multi-billion pound industry. Everybody would shut down and buy this one thing.
Exactly.
So different things will work for different people because of their body makeup as well. There'll be over-the-counter treatments that work very well for some people and they won't work for others. But quite often you have to understand and identify the cause of the hair loss, the type of the hair loss, before people can say, actually, I'm going to start treating it. So if that's a myth, I just think that, I've written a book, actually written two books. The first one is If Only Hair Could Talk, and that's about hair talking to the scalp, about some of the hair care practices we do that can affect the scalp. And the second book is called Way Beyond the Scalp, and it talks about the different types of hair loss. So there's about 15 to 16 or 17 different types of hair loss. But in one of those types of hair loss, which is scarring, there's another 10 or 15. So if you add them all together, there's about 25 to 30 different types of hair loss. So unless you understand exactly what that type of hair loss is, you can't then say, oh yes, I've started growing my hair. What have you used to grow your hair? Quite often, you do have to go and see a specialist. If you've lost your hair and it's come back, or you've grown this really, really long hair, people use, what is it? They say, they go and buy all these different snake oils and different things, and you just wonder what's in them.
Yep. I mean, I know I've seen a lot on social media about hair regrowth serums, things that come from Africa that you can put in your hair that regrow it. And I'm just like, okay. I mean, and again, it may work for some people, but I don't think people really understand and realize, to your point, everything is not going to work for everybody. Everybody has different types of hair loss. So what may work for one person may not work for you. And I know from experience and from working with clients that when you try something and it doesn't work when you're facing hair loss, it's like another blow, okay? Because you have hopes that this is going to be it. This is going to work. And you're trying, you're following the instructions, the directions, and seeing no progress. That kind of takes you back to square one sometimes. So you have to be very careful about that and really, really find out what is happening with your scalp, with your hair loss. Now, Lorna, as a trichologist, what are the steps that you take whenever someone comes into your office or your company to say, hey, I have hair loss? So if I walk in and you look at me, what are the steps you take to walk through that person through a diagnosis or what may be happening with them?
Yeah, definitely. So a consultation is really important. So some of the questions that we will ask about people's general health. That's always an indicator. If people have had their bloods taken recently, because if their blood, the bloods will have a look at your, the basic tests, your blood sugar levels, your iron, your thyroid function, all of these things that we know that can affect the hair growth cycle. Any medical history, we take that.
Okay.
Depending on the type of hair loss, you might ask about anything. For example, you've got some type of hair loss which is excess shedding. We call it telogen effluvium. And that's the type of shedding where people are saying lots of hair is coming out. They're combing or brushing their hair, or they're washing their hair and losing lots of hair. So that's where the hair growth cycle gets disrupted. And quite often, but not all the time, sometimes that might be linked to a period 3 months before. It could be a really stressful period. It could have been an operation. It could have been any stressful period in their life. Quite often, if they think back, they think, oh yes, this happened 3 months ago. And then you see the effects of the hair loss. That's only one type of hair loss. So you do take up an overall picture of their life. You ask them also about stress levels. How do you manage stress? Some
Okay.
people are better at managing stress than others. Sleeping, do people get in? All the things that we know that can affect your general health and your bodily functions, that can affect your hair because it affects
Mhm.
if you're stressed and all of those things, which is just one part of it. Not everybody has stress that affects their hair loss, but there's all different types. And of course, you ask about the symptoms, you ask about how long they've been experiencing it, you find out what they've taken in the past, what they have done. It
Okay.
might be styling techniques. You ask about how they, look after their hair, all different things,
Okay.
depending on what their complaint is.
Okay. Now, you mentioned earlier that trichologists use a holistic approach. And then you also mentioned about castor oil and snake oils and things like that. So, as far as the holistic approach, what do you actually recommend? Like, do you say things like, I know I've heard tea tree oil or rosemary oil. Like, are those the type of holistic things you would recommend, or is it diet that you would change? Like, what would you really recommend on a holistic basis?
And diet, which I didn't mention before, is obviously a big one because
Hmm.
nutrition affects our hair and our bodies.
Hmm.
Because our hair is linked to our our blood vessels feed our hair. So you grow your hair from inside your body. You don't grow your hair by putting anything on your hair.
Hmm.
So if people put things like castor oil on their hair, for example, which I hear a lot, which is why I always mention it, it's
Hmm.
very, very thick and it will stop. It may stop breakage. So stopping breakage equals length, then it's growing your hair. Because it's stopping the breakage. It's just literally sits on top of your strands. It's too big. The
Hmm.
molecule's too big to actually penetrate the hair strands. So we look it would all depend, and sometimes with some of the alternatives, not everybody wants to use chemicals. I work a
Right.
lot with women with cancer as well. We've got another part of the business where we look at cancer related afro hair loss. So there will
Hmm.
be some alternatives to some of the over the treatment counters, but even with some of the essential oils, they may be allergic reactions. So we always work in conjunction with the GP to make sure that they are. We're not medics, so we take some medical history, but we don't
Hmm.
know everything that's happening. So I will always say, yes, this is an alternative, but do please check that this is something that your doctor would be happy for you to use. Obviously, they have their whole medical details. So
Okay.
it's a very difficult. It's not a blanket approach. It would all depend on the information that they would give, that we would find out during the process of the consultation.
All right. So, Lorna, tell us, what do you have anything coming up? Anything you want to share? Anything about your company that you want to tell people about so they can kind of reach out and contact you?
Yes, definitely. So we have, if anyone's based in the UK or is coming over to the UK in April, we're having a conference. It's called SINHE 2025 conference, and it's about cancer-related Afro hair loss, but we'll be also talking about different things. So we'll have like a barbershop production where men will be talking about whatever they talk about in the barber shop. That's going to be really interesting. We have a live cooking show, so we'll talk about healthy eating and healthy options,
Hmm.
and we'll have a variety of talks around about cancer, skin, and hair, how it affects us.
Okay. All right. So, tell everybody how they can get more information about that event.
Okay, so I'll send the link. I'm on LinkedIn and also on Instagram. I've also I'm always training. So the next training course for the hairdressers, coaches, barbers starts in April. So it's every 3 months, and we're halfway through this one, which starts in January. So the next one's in April if anybody wants to get some training on basic trichology, basic functions of the hair and scalp, and hair loss conditions. And I'm also running a trip to Brussels, actually, a really interesting trip
Okay.
overnight. Yep, so we're going to see a well-renowned hair transplant surgeon. His name is Dr. Bisanga, and
Hmm.
he'll be talking about hair transplants, but also non-surgical hair restoration techniques. And we'll have live demos with clients coming in. It's a fantastic course, and that's run in Brussels, and it's going to be held in May. So if anybody wants to get in touch and come over to Brussels for the day, go behind the scenes of a very busy hair transplant clinic and learn more about textured hair and some of the treatments that you can expect to help recover hair from a trichologist, from a dermatologist, and of course from a hair transplant surgeon, which is, the ultimate if the hair can't be recovered any other way. Hair transplants work very well for alopecia and also for some CCCA cases where there's been no active inflammation for at least a couple of years.
Okay. Okay. All right. And I'll make sure I put all of those links to the events in the description of this episode. Now, to wrap up, Lorna, do you have any final words that you would like to say to anyone out there who is experiencing hair loss?
Yes, definitely. I would say if anyone is experiencing hair loss, worried about it in any way, do please at least go and ask about it and see someone, try and understand what's happening. There may be things that you personally can do which can make a difference, or there may be intervention by a trichologist or dermatologist or a GP if you're in England, or general practitioner, so that can help to at least find out the cause. Quite often people want to know the cause of their hair loss, and then you get a range of options, but at least you have those options and you can decide whether you want to take them forward. But if you don't know what's causing it, then of course it may be continue to be progressive. So it's better earlier than later.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Lorna, for coming on today and talking about trichology and being a trichologist and the things you do. We appreciate everything you do for us. So thank you once again. Okay.
Thanks so much. Thanks for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode with Lorna Jones. We want a global perspective. She's in the UK. She's doing her thing, helping people with hair loss. So I hope you got some value out of this episode. Now, if you like this shirt that you see me wearing today, this one says, "Getting ready was a breeze." So if you are a woman with hair loss that would love this shirt, or if you know a woman with hair loss that would love to have a shirt like this, I have this one as well as others that are positive affirmations to women with hair loss to know that you are still beautiful, you are still confident, and you can be exactly who you are. Okay. So if you want a shirt or any other type of apparel, click on the link in the description. It's my website, which is limitlessmindsetcoach.com. You can see the shop there as well as other information if you need some support around your hair loss. Now, one other thing I want to say is that I am also a support leader for the Scarring Alopecia Foundation. They have a CCCA group here in the United States. We meet monthly. So if you are interested in getting some support and joining those support groups, so check out that information. I will also put the link to the Scarring Alopecia Foundation in the description for you to register, because you do have to register in order for you to receive the information to join the call for the support group. And then the last thing I want to say is that Lorna and I will be presenting together in April for the Scarring Alopecia Foundation's conference. Yes, it will be in Nashville, Tennessee in April. So again, when you click to go check out the Scarring Alopecia Foundation support groups, you can also find that information about the conference as well. That link will be in the description. All right, so that's all I have for you guys today. From my heart to yours, I hope you have a good day. Bye.
Thank you for watching the Bougie Baldie Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe